What is going on, everybody? It is episode 251 of Pop Culture Crisis. My name is Brett. I'm here with my co-host. Would you introduce yourself, please?
Hello, Crisis Actors. It's Mary. Happy to be with you again. Last night, we're going to address it. We're going to address it today. And, the show must go on. Here we are.
And we have a guest host today. Would you introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for timcast.com, and I'm here as typically scheduled despite potential displacement.
Yes, and also a guest on Timcast IRL last night.
Yeah.
But, so we got a bunch of stuff to talk about today.
Is it a guest if you just go running up the stairs to fill seats?
I guess anyone can just sit there.
I feel like this is telling you it's like a JV squad. Like
Yes.
we got called up to the major leagues.
Speaking of which,
We
yes.
saved the day,
I
really.
think so,
like,
too.
we are the heroes of last night.
We got a bunch of stuff to talk about today. Your heroism, both of your heroisms. We were going to talk about Kanye West. He walked out of a political podcast.
Which one? What podcast?
It's got a name. Hold on.
Tomcast?
No, Timcast, the one I mentioned you earlier, Timcast
Got
IRL.
it,
He
got
walked out, so we're going to get into that. There's been a lot of debate back and forth about what this means. People have kind of played Monday morning quarterback over the whole thing, but I kind of have my own thoughts about some missed opportunities and stuff relating to this show and everything surrounding it, so we will get into that. We're going to talk about Will Smith having no clue why no one will probably end up going and seeing Emancipation when it comes out, I believe next week, right before Christmas that it comes out.
It's coming out in theaters on December 2nd, and then it's going to Apple TV.
He did an interview in which he talks about why he thinks he's okay if you don't go see it, and I think he's taken the wrong lessons out of this. We are also going to talk about a disgusting new play that's available to be seen called Downstate, which is creepily normalizing the concept of P-word, I guess you would call it.
Child predators, basically.
We are also going to talk about Cara Delevingne and what I called
Her docu-series called Planet Sex, where she travels the globe trying to find answers about sexuality.
Totally. I called it orgasm equity.
I wonder if she goes to the Middle East.
Yeah,
That'd be interesting.
that would be a special episode, would it not?
Yeah. A dangerous one.
So we'll talk about that. We're also going to talk about a couple of new movies that are coming out that me and Mary are both very excited for. So if you ladies are ready, we will just get right into the meat of it right now. Mary, are we ready?
Of course.
Anna Claire, are we ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
Well, let's do this. All right. So from TMZ, it says Kanye West storms out of interview after pushback on anti-Semitism. Now, he was on a podcast called, Timcast IRL. And
Heard of it.
Yes.
Rings a bell.
It's so weird when your office is on TMZ. Yeah. I just have to say, going to my job.
So for me, what it was, the reason I even wanted to cover this, look, this is essentially two worlds folding in upon each other and creating a very weird kind of dynamic in my life where Ye is absolutely this territory. That is what we talk about in this podcast. We talk about Kanye West all the time on here. We talk about his relationship with Kim Kardashian. We've talked about him in relation to Balenciaga.
I mean, we've kind of toned it down on addressing Ye's life recently because it's just one scandal after another.
Yeah.
And at some point, what can we say other than, we wish the best for him? This incident is interesting because it's just an example of many where politics has become pop culture and vice versa. The distinction is blurring between those two worlds. And now the distinction between those two shows, ours and IRL, is also blurring because we were actually planning to get an exclusive interview with Kanye. Not necessarily even an interview, just a discussion.
He was going to be on here. We were going to pre-record a segment last night after IRL was done.
Having him respond to an article the way you normally do.
No. That was actually if I had a critique of last night, I wouldn't have led with an article. I would have started it as a discussion. And I wouldn't have led with an article from the news that I felt set the show, that it put the tone off.
But how were you guys planning on doing it?
We had questions that we wanted to ask, but it could have veered off in 1,000 different directions, including talking about topical news.
And because it's pre-recorded, we would have been able to, if there was stuff that wasn't relevant or, material to what we were going to do with this show, we wouldn't have had to use it. But in general, the biggest mixed opportunity here, for me at least, selfishly, is that I had very specific questions because he played a very big role in my music taste growing up. I have a lot of respect for him as an artist, and I was looking forward to the opportunity to sit down with him and both thank him for a lot of the work he's done as an artist. And you had harder questions. You wanted to talk about Balenciaga. You wanted to talk about Lada Volkov.
I wanted to talk about Adidas's investigation into supposed misconduct where he showed pornography to executives at a board meeting.
Yeah.
I wanted to talk about, of course, the Balenciaga ad campaign controversy and his perspective as one of their former collaborators. I wanted to talk about fashion with him and just general entertainment. I wanted to ask him about his spiritual journey that's very public.
That was the part I was the most in, because he's been very, one of the things that he was talking about yesterday was that he finds it very necessary that we have a Christian president, right?
Mm-hmm.
He believes that that's extremely important. And you, being a Catholic, had a lot of you wanted to talk to him about his spiritual journey and see if you felt that he was open to more growth, or am I paraphrasing there?
Well, I wanted to know, since he's working with two professed Catholics, is he looking into that faith or looking into the Catholic Church? Is he interested in that faith? And unfortunately, all of these questions that we had will go unanswered.
My questions were
It all just turned to dust the second that he walked away, and it's really unfortunate. I wish that last night had gone differently, but there's no point in grieving it, right?
My questions were a little bit more esoteric. I wanted to talk about... we talk a lot about whether the concept of identity matters when it comes to consuming art, right? And the example I wanted to give for him and how his affected me was that I grew up in Minnesota listening to basically gangster rap music from the 90s, right? Stuff that wasn't part of my lived experience. It wasn't part, Tupac, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Biggie, Spice One. All these artists aren't part of what I experienced as a person, but I identified with the music because it spoke to me in a way that had less to do with the lyrics and more to do with what I felt it evoked in me in something. And a lot of people listen to that music ironically, but what I wanted to talk about was there was a very large underground rap scene in Minnesota, groups like Atmosphere, Unknown Prophets, and a lot of that music actually speaks to what the lower middle class struggle is for somebody in the Midwest. Yet somehow when he releases Graduation Day or All Falls Down, stuff that has more about class struggle. There is stuff about racial struggle, but a lot of it has to do about frivolous spending of money. Is college important? Things like that. Things that are kind of connected to my world, but not entirely. That spoke more to me than stuff that seemed as if, because of the other artists who were white artists from lower middle class Minnesota or Midwest, that should theoretically, by the eyes of most identitarians, that should be the stuff that I want to listen to because I see myself in it, or I should be able to see myself in it. But it never came across that way to me. It wasn't what I identified with, and I wanted to get his take on that. I also wanted to ask him if we talked a lot about gospel, his gospel music. I said the idea is is music with a positive message, does it not succeed because it's not promoted, or is it not promoted because it doesn't succeed? Where does in a chicken or egg situation, is that because the labels simply choose not to promote that type of message, or is there a more nefarious purpose there on top of other things? I had stuff because originally Milo was supposed to be a part of that too. I wanted to talk about propaganda infrastructure and how a lie makes it around the world twice before the truth has a chance to put its pants on. And the problem is when you run against mainstream narratives, now this would have been as close to politics as I would have gotten with my questions, is that if they don't like you, they get a lie or a misinterpretation of your motives and your beliefs out so fast. And the thing is, it's been proven that when people are told something, they have a very hard time coming to grips with something different being true. If you believe something, it's the first thing you hear, and then somebody offers you contrary evidence, people have a very hard time accepting contrary evidence and changing their viewpoints. So they're automatically at an advantage because they get that interpretation of your motives, your beliefs, your life out there before you have a chance to really make it out to there. And that's built into the infrastructure of the media that is pushed through our pop culture.
Brett, here's the problem. If you had gone down the avenue of asking any of these questions, even the ones that are esoteric and related to art, I don't think that Ye necessarily would have been open to going into those conversations, and you could tell that from the way that the way that IRL went.
Yeah, I think what's hard is like when you have somebody interesting that you want to interview, and especially to get as close as like having them booked, having them come to the studio, someone as both controversial and as experienced as Ye is. I think it's always disappointing to not be able to ask your questions. The reality is you guys would have these questions even if he had never come on IRL, right? Like this is just the reality of having such a unique individual in culture, and especially commanding culture the way he does in so many respects. And I feel like it's such a loss because you guys worked hard to accommodate him and his team to try and make it work for your show. I get to a point where, and I know we talked about this a little bit last night on the show, like we can speculate over what could have been and what should have been, and there are definitely questions that I would have liked to have heard him answer. On the other hand, like maybe this is a show of character enough for us to walk away with, you know, you don't get the specifics on what you would have liked to hear about his experience in the music industry or with fashion, but like we all have seen a side of him both off camera and on camera that is a closer insight than I think we would have gotten if he hadn't been here.
And aside from what we lost out on, the potential for a longer discussion that we lost, I think I want to draw attention to the portraits that were drawn of both Kanye and Nick. We have an artist who works here. She creates these amazing portraits of guests that come through this building, and they sign them and they're framed all across the wall. And they're really beautiful, and like she's really talented, and I felt terrible that they never even got a chance to sign those portraits.
Well, they did get a chance, they just didn't.
Well, yeah, that is also interesting. Like, did they forget to or choose not to on purpose, knowing that they would leave without the
or were they just opposed to putting their signatures on something for some other
I don't know.
reason?
Intellectual property of some kind. I don't know.
But it does.
But then, and I know that like she was really disappointed that didn't happen. But someone did point out in response to her disappointment that still like those portraits not being signed is kind of documenting in the history of this show and also their careers they walked out that night, and I think that's kind of cool, actually.
It made me think of the movie Mighty Ducks, where when Gordon Bombay misses the penalty shot when he's a kid as one of the members of the Hawks, and then they lose in overtime, and then when he comes back to the arena he played in as a kid, he sees like the Hawks have all these first place awards. It's like first place Pee Wee Championship, first place, and then there's just one second place one in the middle of the huge banner of first place trophies. So now you put those two up and you hang them up unsigned, and it kind of becomes a cultural moment in history for the company.
So I hope it doesn't sting as badly if you can think about it from that perspective, Jessica, if you're watching still.
Also, if I was to give my milquetoast per se take on everything, I think he's a businessman that was absolutely wronged in some of the most egregious ways possible. But as a presidential candidate,
that's a whole other conversation that's been harped upon to no end. I just felt like I didn't want to drag this out longer than it needed to be dragged out, but obviously we're not going to pretend that it never happened, and we were disappointed just as much as I'm sure you guys were that you didn't get to watch that discussion happen.
I would have actually
we just had to lead with it and give our perspective.
I would also like to have asked, like, a lot of great artists created out of conflict and in personal struggle. Like, has what he's gone through inspired him as an artist? Recently, will there be art that comes of this that a lot of people wouldn't be able to fathom because they don't have his creative abilities? It could be that this leads to the best art he's ever created one day. We don't know that. That's a possibility.
Yeah, maybe.
So
it's impossible to know yet.
All right, let's
go to super chats, I guess.
Guys.
Bree Sullivan said, "Can you respond to Helena Bonham Carter coming to J.K. Rowling and Johnny Depp's defense?"
Well, actually, we talked about this yesterday.
we
did.
We're going to direct you to yesterday's episode.
To yesterday's episode 250 of Pop Culture Crisis. Yes. We actually did talk about it, and to me, I thought she did really good. We also talked about Thomas Jane, who had his own critiques of the way the culture is going right now. I pointed out that in my my opinion, it feels like all of the older folks in the Harry Potter franchise seem to be the ones that are about actual tolerance, and the kids seem to be the ones that have a very rigid understanding of what it means to be accepting and tolerant of other people's views. And that speaks volumes to me about where I think the culture is going. I think we're moving far more quickly than we think into a far less accommodating culture than we had previously. Thank you.
You know, I saw a similar conversation happening online, so how can you call it a real conversation anyway? But about the generational divide between like how we interpret what is appropriate sexually. Like they think that young people these days, Gen Z, are like far more puritanical than the millennial generation, and they call them the Puritans.
Do you think that's true?
I've seen that too.
I don't know. I think it's more so that Gen Z is just like having grown up on the internet where there's like all ages are thrown together rather inappropriately without a filter, without separation, and they've been exposed to things that only adults should be exposed to in a lot of cases. They're realizing that there do need to be more safeguards put in place for their generation and the ones to come.
Yeah.
And then millennials are like, you are just sex negative, and you don't like, you're not accepting of other people's freedom in the bedroom or something. And it's like, well, it's not really about what's happening in your bedroom, it's what's happening on public forums, on the internet, or in public pride parades, etc. Like, this is not a private thing anymore, is it?
And we'll talk about that more when we talk
Yeah,
about
we are.
Cara Delevingne.
Yesh said, swiped at they button like Ye swiped Luke's cookies.
I can confirm.
true.
I did see the.
It's real.
I didn't dust for prints, but there were cookies missing. That's all I can say.
Yeah. I mean, I
Drama
watched.
continues.
He grabbed that cookie. I
Look,
saw it happen.
We kept the segment short, but yes, cookies were missing.
I hope that company sponsors us.
That would be fantastic.
Matt's S Box Emporium said, "Our thanks to Ghost Girl for saving IRL. Yee yee." You're welcome. Caper2X said, "Kudos to Mary, Hannah Claire, and Ian for jumping into the breach and saving the IRL. However, is Brett going to walk out now? Let's watch. Make mine Marvel."
I think I have to walk out as the guest.
What would it take for one of us to walk out?
That's a good question. Also, I do want to point out that I spent most of the night after the whole thing happened listening to Kanye's music. So it does not.
Right? It's like deep in
it
like existential mourning right now.
It doesn't affect my appreciation for the art he's created. And that's kind of.
You just put on some sunglasses and just let the tears fall.
We talk a lot about separating art from artists here. We do. You have to, because celebrities are morons on Twitter and they espouse ridiculously stupid views. Stephen King is a thing. Like, he's a thing. These are
Rob
people
Reiner.
that, right? Like Mark Ruffalo is a thing. So if I'm going to watch Avengers, RIP later Marvel, but if I'm going to watch Endgame or anything before that, I have to separate the fact that Mark Ruffalo is a doofus from the fact that I don't mind his work in that movie, right? So it's capable of having something like this happen and still loving their music, still loving their art. So it's kind of something you have to learn how to do.
BMF Nate Dogg said, "Y'all should have jumped him and said," I don't know how to pronounce that. Says hello.
Guess we can't. We don't know how to pronounce it.
I mean, we weren't going to do that anyway.
Yes.
Dane Font said, "Donda Boys took a big L yesterday."
Yes, that is absolutely true.
They're reeling. Yeah. The community of Donda Boys is reeling.
I feel like
from
our
this.
whole office could film like a short documentary on like what yesterday was like for us, because it was just like a combination of surreal and for some people extremely disappointing. And
we can just really over dramatize it.
Oh man,
somebody like goes, "Ugh."
Spray Dane with some pepper spray so he starts crying a little bit.
He faints as they're
We all need a fainting couch, like a personal fainting couch after what happened. I saw this tweet that said, "When are journalists going to learn that communities cannot always be reeling after a crime?"
Like, sometimes people just accept that something happened.
Right? Like,
look,
I don't know if they're reeling.
It
but
happened.
Yeah, DD Mega Doo 97 said a little butt hurt. Tim didn't get to ask Ye who was in Paris. Me too. I've been wondering that myself.
Have you ever seen the TikTok of the guy who says like the song comes on and he says, Alexa, please skip this song. It's like, what song? And he can't say the name.
Holly Movie Star said, look at Ye's eyes in plain cabin pic concerning. They all looked kind of dejected in that photo, but maybe it was just wrong time.
It's very easy with a photo to
Candid.
overindulge your kind of fantasies of what that means. Like a picture can capture somebody looking a lot happier, a lot sadder, a lot of things.
Also,
in that split second.
We could all speculate about everything
Yes.
through the end of time.
Biddy Beastly said, wasn't there supposed to be a special guest here today? One that you might even call a personified pop culture crisis himself.
I'm here. Don't worry.
Yes.
Thank you, Hannah Claire.
But you misgendered her.
Yes.
I don't use male pronouns, but I am here.
Are you a
Don't worry.
personified pop culture crisis?
I don't know.
In your own right.
It's hard to say. I don't want to it's like drinking a toast to yourself. Like probably shouldn't jinx it.
Let's do one more and then we'll move on.
All right. Alex Making Beds and yes, Chairs also said, Hannah Claire, I loved you interviewing Tim and Lee. You need your own show. Imagine Skype short, precise guests from News Cycle, kind of like cable news, but better.
Yeah.
Okay, let's
Interesting
clip this,
idea.
send it over to our
To
projects
pitches at
and-
timcast.com.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Lee. That guy.
All right.
What a guy.
What a guy.
Anyways, moving on.
All right, guys, we're moving on. So Will Smith, he's back in the news. Slapgate notwithstanding, he's back in the news and he is promoting his new movie, Emancipation.
He's kind of on a press tour where it's half groveling for forgiveness from Slapgate, which if you've been living under a rock, or maybe you just have a life, he slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars earlier this year. It was a huge scandal, probably one of the biggest pop culture moments of the year. And then the other half of this press tour has been shilling for this new movie, Emancipation, which is basically a period drama based on a true story about a slave who escaped his plantation where he was.
Thank you.
It's
Oh my gosh, that was
Will
fast.
Smith playing this slave named Peter, I believe. And the trailer is out if you want to go watch it. It's going to be in theaters on December 2nd. And then after that first week, they're moving it over to Apple TV. Not sure what I think about that because I think you need to let a movie ride on its own merits in the theaters and have faith in it instead of throwing it right to streaming after.
It's this. Thank you. It's this kind of weird zone we're in now with like we just went and saw Glass Onion, right? And they're
they only
kind
gave Glass Onion 1 week to prove itself in theaters, and then they throw it to Netflix.
and
it doesn't seem fair.
Some things they want, I'm not super familiar with this, but like some things have to get a theater release to qualify for the very important award shows, right? But then other things, like what was that Western? It was like a series of like short Western stories that were all together. It was a Netflix original. I can't think of the name right now. I hope someone in the chat can think of it.
Yellowstone?
It's not
I don't know. I'm
Yellowstone.
just
It's
thinking of
something in Buster
Westerns.
McGee or something like that.
Okay.
I can't think about what it is, but it was a Netflix original, and at the time, I don't know if rules have changed since, to be considered for whatever the Oscars or movie awards, it had to have a theater release for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
I wonder if that has sort of set a precedent for like, yeah, we'll put it in theaters, so it's in theaters. but
Half-heartedly.
We never actually intend for it to be there.
They don't ever expect to make the amount of money. They need to keep if you're Apple TV and your Netflix and that's your business model. Your business model is your subscription service. That's different than say like Fox or like 20th Century Fox with Disney or Disney releasing something in a theater for a week and then putting it on Disney Plus. That doesn't make any sense for their business model. It doesn't make any sense for Warner Brothers to release the next Batman movie in the theaters for a week and then dump it onto HBO Max. Like, it's different when you have that infrastructure built in.
Will Smith doesn't seem to have a lot of faith in this film because he has preemptively blamed controversy around Slapgate for the possible box office and streaming failure that it will face. He said that he understands if someone is not ready. I would absolutely respect that and allow them their space to not be ready. following Slapgate. He said, "My deepest concern is my team. Antoine has done what I think is the greatest work of his entire career." So he's trying to redirect the focus back to the movie. I respect that. However, I think a smarter response to this controversy could have been, well, the movie is not about me. The movie is about the character and the story that I'm portraying.
Box office bait does not equate box office number. Like Oscar bait does not equate box office numbers anyways anymore. It's always very clearly a ploy.
And you pointed out that it's Oscar bait just because it's coming out in the winter, just in time. And to be honest, this doesn't seem to be what mainstream audiences want. It doesn't seem like it's going to get released overseas at all.
I really don't have a desire to be lectured anymore. That's whether that's what it is. I don't know. If that's
Here's the
what
irony of it. No. While people are coming to Will Smith's defense, saying that he has been on this overextended apology tour where he's forced to grovel and lash himself for really what was relatively a small offense. As you said, bar fights happen all the time.
I do not care about Slapgate. No normal, average, everyday person gives a crap about Slapgate.
He is now releasing this film, which is targeted at self-flagellating awfuls.
Yes.
The whole point is there are second chances for me, but not for thee, when you have collective guilt for this nation's history with slavery. It's incredibly ironic and hypocritical.
Especially from celebrities who have never never actually suffered in their life.
Right, like Will Smith.
I don't like
Will
that.
Smith has been in this industry since his childhood. Yeah. He lives an incredibly comfortable, cushy life where people affirm him all the time. Even when he physically assaults someone on live television, they come to his defense and quite literally say he did nothing wrong. Like, I've seen many people say that he did nothing wrong. Yep. There were no charges pressed against him. I don't see how it can resonate when someone who lives this cushy of a life makes a film portraying someone who was literally like tortured into a 3-month-long coma.
Another thing that's really interesting is his daughter said, "Daddy, do we really need another slave movie?"
Yes, he openly admitted on Trevor Noah that his daughter Willow said, "Daddy, do we really need another slave movie?" And then he later recounted this interaction he had with his 9-year-old nephew, who asked him after the Oscars, "Why did you hit that man, Uncle Will?"
Her saying that kind of tells you where the culture's going a little bit. Like the youth don't care about this. They don't.
Not even Willow Smith, who you would think is like the wokest of the woke.
Yeah,
cares about your preachy movie.
It's weird because I have this feeling that he like references Slapgate like to be relevant. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what Will Smith does when not slapping someone in the face. Like, I'm not up to date.
It's because the interviewers shoehorn that into all of the press for this movie.
Yeah, but I think the thing is, like, it's always going to be part of the, like, keyword search now. Like, when you, at least for the next, like, I don't know, 18 months, like, when you talk about Will Smith, someone's going to reference the fact that he, you know,
I can't believe
physically assaulted someone on stage.
Like, I wonder if this had happened, no, maybe this seems stupid, if this had happened outside of the Oscars and not on stage, would it have mattered? Like, if the same exact thing had happened, Chris Rock says something disparaging as a joke, and he says, "Keep my wife's name out of your mouth," and then he goes over and slaps him out while they're waiting for their limos, does it matter? I don't care. I don't care. Apologize.
It was the pomp and circumstance of the awards ceremony, which is entirely phony.
It shows a lack of understanding
that
of
caused the upset.
Yeah. It shows a lack of decorum.
It's a lack of decorum, but I also think it freaked people out so much.
Why?
Partially because Hollywood is gonna pearl clutch, but also like for the I don't know, I would have given it like a 24-hour, 48-hour minute in the news cycle. Like, it's an unusual thing to happen. It's not okay, and to a certain extent, I feel like it was an indication to a lot of Americans that we are becoming a more a society prone to violent outbursts, and you see this reflected in crime statistics right now. Like, violent crimes are up in America, so to see it somewhere you don't expect it was disconcerting. Do I think we needed to hear about it for the next 100 years? No, but I do. Like, there's no denying that it is unusual. It's relevant. Again, 24, 48 hours in the news cycle, I'm done. But it went on and on because Hollywood was freaked out for themselves.
Also, $120 million budget on a limited release. Holy crap.
I do think that it's ridiculous for the media to focus on this incident for so long. However, Will Smith isn't doing himself any favors when he could have handled his return to Hollywood much better by going with something classically Will Smith, like a lighthearted action thriller.
This was probably already in the
comedy.
pipeline.
It was probably in the pipeline.
Yeah.
However, I mean, the timing is unfortunate.
Yeah.
And he is focusing too much on it in the press, despite their leading questions.
I think he has. I think his PR people are telling me he has to. That there's no way to just pretend it's not happening. It would be hilarious though if this ends up becoming like a repeat. He wins back-to-back Oscars, and it was he banned? Was he? I don't remember if he was officially banned for 10 years or something like this. And they reinstate him in under a year, and he wins back-to-back Oscars, thus proving the power of American guilt and and the wokeness of our celebrity media class.
Someone tweeted, Brad Pitt is seemingly facing minimal, if any, backlash to the objectively troubling allegations of domestic abuse by him against his family. Yet Will Smith is literally only allowed to grovel for forgiveness more than a half year after slapping someone for insulting his wife.
There is no actual evidence that Brad Pitt did everything. People can watch
exactly.
What Will
There's
Smith
a he
said,
she said situation versus something that happened on live TV.
Yeah.
That's
vastly
the main
different.
difference. And secondly, it's ridiculous to frame this as if it's some kind of racial issue where coming to Will Smith's defense is coming to the defense of the honor of the entire black population. Like, that's insane. And also kind of insulting because I wouldn't liken an entire racial group to one celebrity who is obviously narcissistic and ill-tempered and emotionally dysregulated.
He probably would have been better off.
He blamed this on like his childhood trauma.
Yeah.
I feel like it was like
ridiculous.
Anything to get out of it though. I mean, like, it was just such a weird, like, I was the one who was like, man, I don't really have a lot to say about last night. But the thing that I took away from last night's interview with Ye was that he said, when you become famous, you stop aging. Like, the age that you are when you get famous is how old you stay, because then you have like your parents handling it, or you have handlers who then go to the next handler or whatever else. And that was really interesting. Like, in some ways, Will Smith became famous, was a child star, was famous all through his young 20s. And in some ways, like, the impulsivity of like attacking someone on stage for dishonoring your wife in this weird way, like it seemed like a lack of self-control, which to me communicated immaturity.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like Ye said, I got famous at 24 years old and I stopped maturing. Whenever you get famous is when you stop growing as a person. I don't know if that's necessarily true. It depends on if you have the proper guidance around you.
Don't they say the same thing about sexual abuse?
They do say the same thing about sexual abuse. I guess it's just like any point in your life where you go through an intense change of perspective. I don't know.
If somebody joins the military at 18 and goes to war, do they stop maturing at 18?
Well, that is like an effect of PTSD, is that you're frozen in time.
Yeah, I think it's twofold. So like when you experience something traumatic, like abuse, then like it becomes difficult to mature because that experience dominates your psyche so intensely. With what Ye was talking about, it's more like you no longer have to continue to mature and take accountability and be responsible, right? Like, think as simple as like if you've ever rented an apartment, right? You got to fill out the application, you got to move your stuff, you got to figure out how you're turning on your utilities. Like, there are all steps, and once you do them, you know how to do them for life, kind of thing. Yeah. But if you become famous at 16 and then you have a manager who helps you buy your house and does all that stuff for you, like, do you ever even sign a check? Do you ever really do any of that stuff? There's a difference between being sort of stuck at an age because you're experiencing emotional trauma versus like being shifted into a lifestyle where like the world caters to you and you don't have to develop the skills to survive in it.
Another reason you should laugh in the face of any celebrity or famous person that tells you how to live your life on Twitter.
Or in a pretentious film. Here's this other tweet that I think said exactly my take. I know Will Smith's agony and slap is escapism for many because he's an entertainer. However, I can care less that the man felt his wife was disrespected in that moment. What I'm sick of seeing is this, quote, slavery epic emancipation that he stars in not being called what it is. And him employing the drama of Slapgate to preemptively defend this film for a flop is extremely disingenuous, and it's not recognizing that there are consequences that to making entertainment that alienates mainstream audiences and audiences overseas. Here's another example with Strange World. People are claiming that this box office flop that might lose Disney almost $100 million or more is a circumstance of adapting from the post-COVID era in the box office, that people feel more comfortable watching things at home now, and they were too scared to go to the theaters in 2022, almost 2023. And they're claiming also that homophobic viewers didn't want to see this movie because they hate representation for LGBT youth. They'll come up with any reason except that the product they made was inadequate.
There's a really good article on Bounding Into Comics right now about this that says like the reason that these movies fail is much simpler than you think. I recommend that everyone go over there. It's on the front page right now, and go check this out. The theater one for Strange World is interesting because I do think that there is an argument to be made these days that it is definitely a harder sell for them to figure out how to make movies that people actually want to go see that aren't superhero movies. And then when they do, they don't know how to market it anyways. So they screw themselves over twofold. Because they don't market them properly or they don't know how to.
Which they apparently allocated $60 million to, or $80 million.
I didn't see any of at all. But with Emancipation, like this is just one of those things that it's going to be a niche audience because people, first of all, we're in a recession. Movies are very expensive to go see. People will wait for this one to go on Apple Plus. I don't know who actually uses. I don't use Apple TV, but
whoever watched Gutsy by Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton.
Yes.
They'll go straight from watching Gutsy to watching Emancipation because it just wasn't preachy enough.
But okay, also, are we in our own, look, we're part of the, like, whether you like it or not, or whether I like it or not, we're stuck in the culture war of sorts. Whether you want to or believe it or not, we kind of are. So there are people who are going about their days every day who don't really realize that this stuff is going on. They might be more amenable to a movie like this where, if they don't feel like it's just another part of Hollywood flogging themselves for the sins of their country's past and stuff like that. But I do think that plays a role in it. And it's the pretentiousness of it all. But to be fair, there's also something to be said about the unseriousness of the times we live in where we're using a guy who slapped a guy in a tuxedo at an award show and having to talk about it as he advocates for a movie that's about one of the worst atrocity that this country ever performed, right?
Sorry, I was just gonna say, in some ways, I feel like doing something serious and trying to like become respectable again is like his only move, because if he had been put in like I'm thinking like a Jack Black style kind of slapstick comedy,
I think that was the way to go.
Like, you think it would be better?
I loved Bad Boys.
I feel like I can't tell if that would he would get attacked for being like, you committed assault in public and you should not be doing this, or if that would have been like better, because now it's like weirdly cheap to be like, well, I'm doing something. I'm talking about a serious issue in my next movie.
I think it would be like, this is the Will Smith that we remembered and loved. And
people would be more forgiving of fun Will Smith if he comes back as fun Will Smith again in Bad Boys. Or
Bad Boys for Life did amazingly. Like, if he did something in that tone, I think it would have done much better.
But there's no choice because this was already
the last thing I want to hear when Emancipation or Strange World or any of these films underperform is that it's the audience's fault and that we are somehow racist, bigoted, homophobic, or that we have remaining fears about the pandemic. Those are all fake, phony reasons that people aren't showing up and getting in seats at theaters.
Look,
it's because you need to give the audience something that has mass appeal.
There was a thing in the article that I was reading earlier. I've kind of... This is going to be unpopular, not an unpopular take, but I have my own reservations about the idea that to a lot of people, whether they believe it or not, identity does matter to them. I would like to believe that it doesn't. I don't think it should judge how you go see a movie. But a lot of people were saying, like, one of the arguments they were making as to why they didn't go see Bros was because there was nothing in the movie that they identified with. And that's a fair take, right? Like, there's nothing in that movie for me. I'm not gay. I don't have any interest in rom-coms particularly anyways. Why would I go see it if there's nothing in that movie for me to see? For this, are the only people that are going to identify this going to be kind of the elite liberal class that loves to spout from the ivory tower? Or is there going to be your average, everyday Midwestern family that's going to want to go and see this? I don't think that that's a thing, but I don't think that that makes them bad people. It's just not something that in a recession, in times of crisis as a society, you're not going to spend your hard-earned money to go be lectured or to get a revisionist history lesson on something that happened in our past.
Yeah.
We can accept that bad things happened without needing to have multimillionaires be the ones that tell us that that is the truth. There's something insulting about it, but that's also our own fault as a society for elevating these people to a status they don't deserve. We treat them as thought leaders and as people that are important to society. They're not.
Yeah.
They do work that may entertain us, and that's, if depending on how much entertainment matters to you, that matters, I guess. But they're not the ones you look to for moral guidance. They're not the ones you look to for anything other than entertainment. So we have our own, battles to fight as to when these movies are going to work and when they aren't. And I guess the only way to really know is by box office numbers, but that's even less plausible now because more and more things like this that are getting made are going to end up going straight to streaming because they don't see them as financially viable. So then they get to both blame you for the movie not doing well without the numbers to back it up and constantly churn this stuff out.
Yeah.
And to be fair, Anthony Fuqua and Will Smith, that it could be really, really good, but I just don't think right now is when it's going to have its most success. I think maybe 10 years ago this would have done really, really well.
Sorry.
I was just say I think identity is an inescapable concept. Identity is what frames your view of the world. And while there are probably, I don't even know what you'd call it, like toxic identity, like people who are too obsessed with certain parts of it.
But there has to be more.
Right, but like it's inescapable, and I think while we can try and not, we can work to not view everything through the lens of identity, like your personal framework, like what makes you is inescapable, and you shouldn't be upset about that. Like it's not bad that you might choose not to see movies because they don't appeal to you. Like that's the reality of life, and whether or not that's informed by
it's like sexual preferences. Like you can't you don't have the right to someone's attraction.
Right. I would like to think that this movie would do well because it's interesting, and if it's not interesting, it wouldn't do well. I know that because we are an identity obsessed culture, like there will be ascribed a reason that may or may not be accurate to how it does, and that's sad. But I just want to caution against saying like, well, I try not to think about identity at all. Like it's natural you just don't want to be so dominated by it that you are unable to, see other perspectives.
Yeah, it's not the concept of making a film about a particular slave's story or about freedom or about American history that is a problem to me. That's fine if you want to do that. And, that can have artistic merit. But because of the climate right now, I feel like and also the marketing, I feel like it is airing a grievance about 21st century problems rather than telling an authentic story about things that happened in the past.
I think they have an out on this one to just say like it didn't do well because of Slapgate, and then they don't have to blame.
Well, that's why they're preempting it right now in the media. So, I mean, congrats, Will Smith. You got your perfect loophole.
I think his best bet would have been to come back and do another action movie or another.
Definitely
should have come back as Deadshot for a new.
This was not smart for him, but maybe he will after this.
All right.
Let's go to Super Chats. Bad App said, saying yay is like saying pronouns. They, them, yay.
Technically, his legal name is now Ye.
Yes, it is.
But his Twitter handle is Kanye West. So
this is confusing.
The
chat is a doozy today. Yep. Just warning you guys. Johnny Beck sent us a thumbs up. Thank you. BMF Nate Dogg said, Hannah Claire, you went hand on Lawrence last night.
Hand on Lawrence. I don't know what that means.
You guys need to proofread this stuff. I don't know what that means.
Ham?
Ham?
Probably meant ham.
If it's supportive, thank you. And if that's mean, How rude.
They probably meant you went ham on him, like you roasted him or something.
No, I just like chattered nonstop. I was like, Tim, here's 1,000 questions. Tim and I personally played 20 questions while everyone was getting settled last night.
Waffles Sensei said, Tim keeps saying Ye doesn't owe him anything. I disagree. I get the sentiment, but I think Ye did owe everybody who took a risk for him a full show.
I mean, my opinion would be that I think the right thing to do is to finish out the show. But in this case, I felt that the energy was off right from the beginning.
If he weren't up for having a conversation like that, which is something he was saying from the very beginning, like, I'm not having a conversation like this, then maybe he shouldn't have flown out in the first place. That's up to him, though. Fat and Fresh said, I believe Tim and Luke's confrontational style was not the best fit. They also didn't start well with the article they chose to open with, made Ye focus on the word anti-Semite instead of the dinner. Absolutely. They should not have started with an article. Tim should have just been like, so, the dinner. Because that title on that article was off-putting. Yep. Potatoes for Seamus said, hi, Hannah Claire, love your eyes. Hi, Brett and Mary.
Hello, Seamus.
Greetings.
Dash Fortune said, everything that went wrong with the interview is on Ye. Tim and Luke are just who they are, and discussing politics is the game of the show.
Yeah, the one thing that I do think people misinterpret, because when it's a bigger guest like that, people think it's an interview, but it's technically not. It's a roundtable discussion.
Yeah.
And that's not the same thing. Tim isn't really an interviewer. He's there to have a debate and discussion with people. You can argue all day about whether, who did the right thing, did he use the right tact. I can't say that it would have gone any differently any other way. It felt to me like the energy was off right from the beginning, but it's definitely not an interview. But people did, when you attract that many people, they're going to assume that you're there to hear Ye speak because he is the name that draws everyone in. So I get it.
I think this happened before too, where we've had people who maybe aren't as familiar with the show come in and they get booked for it, or like their team reaches out to have them on, and like we have to explain, like, we're not interviewing you necessarily, like we're all going to kind of collectively read the news and hang out. Well, because which is unusual, but like it's one of the things that makes the show unique.
And we've been starting to, we're booking guests out for Fridays now for the show. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing that's going to be true of that too. Like there's people, once you get to a certain level of person that's going to be on, right? They have to wonder, like, am I there to just promote my stuff? Are we just going to talk about me or my experience? Because that's really what an interview is. You're looking for just their perspective. But when you watch a show that's an ensemble show, it's the perspectives of all the people. Right. Some of those people come in to hear what Tim has to say. Some of the people come in there because they love what Luke has to say. Some of them love what Ian has to say. Some of them just want to hear what these guests think. Mm-hmm. And you'll get a varying level of people who say, I'm here to understand what all of them think. That is not the same as one person sitting there, one person sitting here, and that person whose job is designated to ask questions of that person.
One of the things that I think is interesting is like your expertise can influence the way it goes. Like if you guys have a filmmaker on, right? Yeah. Like they probably can tell you in depth about why someone may or may not release something in film, or if Will Smith is making a good decision for putting out Emancipation after Slapgate. But they also are well-rounded enough to be able to connect to the other things that are going on. And I think that style, people understand more with this pop culture realm because there's more fluidity to what you're doing. Whereas like people tend to feel like if I'm an expert in this subject and they're bringing me in to talk about the news, surely I'm only commenting on the news that has to do with my area of expertise. Mm-hmm.
So is this is a little bit aside. Does that mean that the film that gets made after this is the Slapgate movie starring Will Smith?
If they make a Slapgate movie,
let's go.
It starts with a child playing Will Smith during his childhood,
and he's like about to slap someone and he doesn't, and he holds back, and he's been holding his anger in for 40 years.
Wasn't slapping people a big thing on like How I Met Your Mother? Do you guys remember that sitcom? There's like a whole thing where they have like a slap bet or whatever.
Really?
Yeah. I feel like Will Smith should maybe just do a remake of that one.
He could do that. Or maybe he plays a boxer, or he plays.
He'd be too triggered.
Well, I think what he's trying to do is like be like, I am deep and empathetic. Like, don't think of me as just this like brutal moron who slapped this guy on stage.
Look, everybody screws up and everybody makes mistakes.
Also, do we care about Will Smith this much?
It's like when people are like, oh, it's such a problem for society. I'm like,
no,
really?
I'm just annoyed that people excuse it because he's a celebrity and not because they understand, rightly so, that like fighting is a normal thing that happens in real life.
Yeah.
Steven Kozarek said, "Go USA Men's World Cup team."
I saw. Okay,
Haven't been keeping up.
I
to be
saw
honest.
today that on TMZ that they said that like 500 people died building that stadium.
Yeah.
Oh god.
Oh yeah, it's been controversial from the beginning. Also, this isn't exactly pop culture, but the United States Soccer Federation posted a graphic online being like, our game against Iran is coming up, and they took off a symbol that's like a symbol of the Islamic Republic, and it caused all kinds of controversy. And within 24 hours they had scrubbed it, and they're like, well, we only meant to have it up for 24 hours because there are like very serious
This is why
riots going on there.
This is why globalism doesn't work.
No,
dude.
it doesn't make any sense.
as
Literally abusing workers to build the stage on which you preach to the world about tolerance and acceptance.
And as a society, like people have a hard time accepting that different cultures, like you can talk all day about which culture is morally superior, right? Everyone has their own opinion on that, but a lot of them just have trouble accepting that different cultures view the world differently, and they all think of themselves as the morally superior one.
And I would argue that people feel as though, yes, we can all have different cultures, but we'll be forgiving and understanding. And like when you come, the big example here, I know this isn't what we're talking about, and I'll just let it go quickly, but Budweiser is the big sponsor of the World Cup, and because it's in Qatar, I think that's how we pronounce it, they initially were like, yeah, you can sell beer here, and then they're like, no, because it is against the rules
law,
of their
yeah.
society. Like it's literally against the law there. And we've had how many years knowing that that's where the World Cup was going to be, and no one figured this out until the week before.
You'd think there would have been an advisor to do his job and tell him.
No, it'll be fine. We'll all just hold hands and sing Kumbaya.
Mary's going to lead the chorus
Yeah.
of Kumbaya.
Evan Perry said, "I think Ian would have made a good guest at the start of last night, being he would try to empathize with Ye more.
I agree with that.
He is definitely more attentive in conversation.
One of the things I love about Ian is like when you talk to Ian, he is like paying 978.3% to you.
That's
like,
what I said to Ian last
all
night.
his
I was like,
when he's talking to you. I still remember the day I met Ian. He was like looking at me in a way that like I don't think my parents ever paid that much attention to me when I was talking, and I was like, it was actually off-putting. Like how
I don't
like
think it's off-putting.
how-
I like it.
no the first
Brett's
but I'm saying-
uncomfortable being the center of attention.
the first time though, the first time he did it, I was like, is this normal? Like people don't normally pay that much attention to me. Like
Yeah, because then you have to actually pay attention to what you're saying. And
He's
it makes
also
sense.
just like a different personality. Like that's why I think the rotation works so well, is because he brings a different perspective to the table, and
let's hold off. We'll come back after we talk about Downstate.
Still got a lot to talk about,
We got a
guys.
lot to talk about, and this one is particularly repugnant. So this is a play. It's called Downstate, and this is from the Washington Post. So I want you to, in fact, I don't even want to say this because I don't want to get clipped. But it's Downstate is a play about pedophiles, and according to the Washington Post, it's brilliant. Yes, that is the world we live in today, ladies and gentlemen. It says, take a deep breath and try to ruminate calmly on the position playwright Bruce Norris takes in his scintillating new play, Downstate, that the punishments inflicted on some pedophiles are so harsh and unrelenting as to be humane. So
Inhumane.
not humane.
did I
So
say humane?
here's the
Gotta stress
gist,
that point.
guys. This is about a group of convicted child predators who are living post their prison sentences in a halfway home together that has poor conditions, whatever. And you are introduced to each one of them, and it particularly focuses on the oldest convict in this halfway house and a confrontation that he has with his now adult victim named Andy. So they have this confrontation where this journalist says we are meant to wonder if Andy is marinating in self-pity. Absolutely.
The victim?
Yes.
Yes, the idea is that the victim is they're literally playing that the victim is somehow overthinking the fact that he was abused by someone.
By looking for closure in a conversation with his molester, Fred.
The first thing that I thought of when I saw all this was
we're supposed to be like judgmental of Andy because they wrote his character to be annoying.
the first thing I thought of was the quote says, "Don't be so open-minded that your brain falls out." Right? Mm-hmm. Is that not what this kind of like? Look, I am the most. I would like to think that I am as open-minded as anyone, but this is a push to normalize this type of thing. It is. I don't see this any other way. I don't
mean,
see
obviously, yeah. But it's like, are you going to write a play that sympathizes with children who were victimized?
Yeah.
No, because then journalists at the Washington Post and blue check people on Twitter would not be able to post about how it's a beautiful masterpiece and they are enlightened for understanding its artistic merits when in reality, like, everyone else is tired of the nuance because you're adding nuance only to situations that don't need it. And then when much smaller offenses are on the table, like someone making a politically incorrect misstep, none of the nuance is allowed to be involved. So
very interesting.
We're just tired of it.
I also feel like there's not actually the nuance that they want here. Like, yeah, it's sad when people get treated inhumanely. On the other hand, like, to say that committing crimes against children is just something that you can like do time for and be rehabilitated from is a stretch. Like, there's no evidence to back that up. It's not like, you know, shoplifting or petty theft or something else. Like, there are crimes that are an indication of your psychology, and they are not something that, you know, it's not that I think the American justice system as it is, or at least the prison system, is necessarily the best for rehabilitating people, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, like, do we all fundamentally believe that you can be rehabilitated from anything? Because I can't say that I do. I think there are some things that, like, you can't come back from, and abusing children is definitely one of them.
Are we ever going to get the movie that shows Harvey Weinstein in an empathetic light? Is that going to happen? I can answer that question. The answer is no.
That's another point that I wanted to bring up is, like, with all of the media and the aftermath of Me Too, are we going to see something where they flip the script about adult female victims, that they marinate in self-pity? That's insane. But somehow it's acceptable when we're talking about people who were victimized as children. And that's how I think that the Me Too movement got hijacked in the first place, to solely focus on adult female victims rather than the multitude of cases in Hollywood where children are specifically targeted.
Think about even Kim Kardashian. Like, I'm reevaluating my relationship with Balenciaga
because there's so much nuance.
Because there's so much nuance there. But these companies will cut ties with individuals because they say the wrong thing on Twitter. Mm-hmm. Like, it is backwards, and it only, like you said, it only goes one way. And the other thing that I think is funny about it is these questions are used as social weapons to, first of all, we've turned the word tolerance into something that doesn't actually mean what it means. It means that you now not only have to tolerate something, you have to like it too. Not liking it is not tolerant to them. You know what I mean? Like, if you don't
even
like
the word tolerate is like, this is an evil that I am abiding by because I have to.
So who are the people going to these plays other than rich New York, elitist New Yorkers?
Dude, literally, I saw this tweet from this guy called Paul Rudnick NY. He lives in New York. He is a critic and a playwright. And he said, Bruce Norris's play Downstate, now at Playwrights Horizons in New York City, is a miracle of writing, acting, and directing. It's harrowing, funny, thrilling, and everything that great theater can be. Do not miss. And then someone replied, miracle is the perfect word to get a play like this to work. I love bold risk-taking. This is why I love theater. Like, you are disgusting.
I would love to go through their Twitters and see what they say about, like, Republicans. I guarantee you there's none of that bold nuance or any of that type of distinction amongst people they disagree with.
Yeah. Where's a play that casts, I don't know, alt-writers in a sympathetic light? That would never happen.
I have a good story about that, but I'll tell you off air. I think that this is such a strange side to take. Like, I firmly believe, like, especially when there are taboo subjects or things that make you uncomfortable, it's good to talk about them. So I'm not 110% opposed to a play about people who abuse children. I just think that we shouldn't glorify them, right? Like, you know, Fred, this character, has been badly beaten in prison, and obviously that's terrible. On the other hand, like, he was in prison for molesting children, right? Like, this is not just like some random guy who got beat up on the street, and he inflicted serious suffering on another person that we are now told is just kind of annoying. Like, to a certain extent, I feel like this narrative of, like, some people get to say the things that you did to me are wrong forever, and some other people have to get over them, is a very strange stance for the Washington Post to take. Again, I think that there are a lot of mediums to explore, taboo topics, and I think that's part of art's role in society. But like, let's not decide that the actual very clear victim, like, there's no nuance in who suffered here.
It's really rich that the art world's there's a dollar bill on you. It's really rich that the art world's answer to a victim of this kind of crime is pull yourself up by your bootstraps, when in any other situation that would be unfathomable for them to message. And then
why are kids always the victims of this stuff?
Well, because they're satanic.
But, like, I'm asking.
That's like a whole other
question.
Andy is like.
I'm asking rhetorically.
In the scene where Andy confronts Fred, Andy being the victim, in case anyone forgot, we're supposed to like see that he is out of touch because he now, in his line of work in finance, enjoys certain physical comforts that Fred does not, because Fred is disabled after getting beat up in prison over his crimes. Fred is also, living in this halfway home where he is socioeconomically disadvantaged. And we're supposed to think that his suffering as someone who is just materially poor is more meaningful than Andy's suffering as now an adult who has to process the trauma that he experienced as a child getting sexually violated.
But he's got money, so it's okay.
But he's a rich finance guy who's a white male, a straight white male.
Notice they say, which, by the way, just using the term finance guy is automatically framing. Like, the framing of it is automatically that if
you have a stereotype.
He's a white cis straight male in the finance
That's
world.
why I say this play is trying to argue that like our criminal justice system is broken and that we continue to punish people after they have served time, right? But I'll return to my original thesis. Like, this kind of crime doesn't just go away, and its damage is forever. So no, I don't necessarily feel bad that someone who is convicted of this kind of crime continues to suffer even when they are not imprisoned, because I don't know that there's an amount of time that you actually come back from this, right? Like, it's not the same thing.
The show The Good Doctor did an episode on MAPS in which they portray MAPS in a sympathetic light, and a lot of people got understandably extremely outraged at that. And this is what I talk about, incremental. They are pushing you little by little to not just understand that this person, you can see that this person did awful things and understand that they're suffering now. I still don't have any, I'm one of those people that's like, look, you make your decisions in life and you reap the consequences of your actions.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that I am more empathetic and sympathetic than a lot of people, but even for something like this, even I draw the line there. I'm like, look, you made your choices. You made a choice
that affected someone who was not old enough you specifically targeted a victim who was in a capacity that they would not be able to help themselves. They cannot properly advocate themselves. They cannot stop you, probably physically, right? They're smaller than you. Like, it is horrific.
But this is only a couple steps away from them saying, well, minors can consent to this type of thing because everything's a social construct anyways. So what does it matter? Like, this is all, and this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, and we're going to go into it more when we talk about Cara Delevingne. What I think of most of this stuff, beyond just the vile nature of what they're trying to normalize here, is that this is a conscious effort on behalf of maybe not this guy in particular, but definitely the people who greenlit this, who allowed this to come to life. This is an attempt on their part to destabilize the world around you and make it feel like there are no actual morals or things beneath your feet that make the world feel solid and as if it's actually like you have a firm grasp of the world around you. Whether we like it or not, 20, 30 years ago, maybe to varying degrees, we had an understanding of what the world was, and there was a fairly concrete example of good and evil. Mm-hmm. Maybe that was naive in a lot of cases. You could make the argument, especially when we talk about war, what is good and evil. But nowadays, it's like it is the postmodern effect of everything, right? Yeah. Like, it's not that this guy's evil, it's that he's misunderstood.
Well, and I think that's why, evil. To return to something we said earlier in the show, I think that's why you see a lot of teens leaning more conservative, right? Like, this newest generation is at a point they are experiencing the effects of a society that was like, all morality has gray areas and we have to have empathy for everything under the sun. I feel like at this point we're seeing younger generations say like, no, some things are black and white. Like some crimes are just unforgivable.
Well, there is black and white. It's when you say mean things on Twitter against people.
I didn't finish reading the article, but like none of the people living in this halfway house are chemically castrated, right? Like that was a punishment for people who abused and attacked children in this manner for a long time, like which got talked down because it was considered inhumane. Like we as a society have struggled with a long time with how to deal with this, and like the fact that like there is even a version of this where like, yeah, there's a whole house of people who are convicted of these crimes who hang out together, and yeah, it's not like a great scenario, it's not wonderful, but on the other hand, like they're not in prison for life. Like at what point are we sort of thinking like that's okay? I that sounds horrible, but like we have to see when some crimes are not ones that you do time for and just walk away from, right?
It's there needs to be that level of some level of concrete.
The victim in this can never walk away, right?
It's just whether it's the Balenciaga campaign with the BDSM teddy bears and the court documents hidden under a designer handbag, or it's Downstate adding this much needed gray area. People are tired of being told that they don't recognize the nuance in a situation that is the most severe power imbalance you can imagine. But then in any other situation, it's all about power plus privilege. You are 100% condemned for life if you say something mean online.
Moby leaves Twitter because alt-right people are saying mean things on the internet.
Real people and not journalists and film critics and playwrights who live in New York City are tired of hearing that they are morally compromised because they don't recognize the gray area in a situation like this. There isn't a gray area. Even if there is, I'm really not interested in exploring it through art.
Maybe that's the question. It's like the question is, why would you want to explore it?
Why is that? And really, why is that the exclusive
to this
gray area or nuance that we are told to explore?
Why is there no gray? Yeah,
there
why
is
don't we
no
explore
other content focusing on any other morally compromised individuals.
Yep.
And then I saw this tweet that was like, oh well, if we can accept that there was a Netflix series about Jeffrey Dahmer, then I think that we can all calm our titties about this Downstate play. Like, but that's not the same thing. Everyone who watched the Dahmer series understands that these are heinous crimes that should never be repeated and that should be unequivocally condemned.
And some of the Dahmer objections, from what I remember, it was like that the victims' families weren't involved, like that because it's not fictional the way Downstate is fictional.
He reached out to all the families and none of them responded.
And like this becomes the ethical question, like do they need to be involved? Like is it okay to profit off of someone else's tragedy? That kind of stuff. Downstate is fictional, which means someone was like, I'm specifically going to write about this on purpose. I'm not
the story
documenting
needs
that's
to be told.
Yes, and like whether it was Pam McKinnon, the director, or whether it was the playwright's original intention for basically the victim to come off as like this person who's wallowing in self-pity without justification, like it remains to be seen, right? Because we should acknowledge that because it's theater, the director does play a huge role in how some of the actors take directions or some of the staging or whatever, which can influence how you see characters. I personally feel like it's not a direct comparison to the Dahmer situation because this is a work of fiction. This just was someone saying like, I think this side of this story needs to be told because I believe it has merit.
I also believe that this is one of those things where, look, this director could, or I'm sorry, the writer of this play could be a normal person who just thought this was an interesting story. Sure, I don't agree with that, but it's not him that I necessarily think is causing all the problems. It's the studio that approves it. It's all the steps it has to make through. It's one thing to have a thought and write a story. It's another thing for a major corporation or conglomerate to say this is a story worth telling to massive amounts of people.
In a similar vein, I wanted to discuss Hollywood's rehabilitation of Kevin Spacey, who now has 12 pending allegations against him of sexual misconduct
And a new
or
movie coming
assault. And he has just been casted as a voice actor in a new movie called Control. The production company is rather small, and that's why some people were saying this might actually be more of a win for cancel or accountability culture, because he has been casted to the bottom of the barrel. But at the same time, it's insane that with this much mounting evidence against him, Hollywood is rather unconcerned.
Well, evidence by virtue
with
of
the risk. They're
of
unconcerned with the liability
Yeah.
that these pending claims present to them as a production company.
It is
You
still-
don't know what's going to come of these 12 counts.
Yeah.
That's a lot. They're all in the UK. This is following the lawsuit that just concluded between him and Anthony Rapp, where the jury found that he was not guilty of battery. But you don't know what the outcome is going to be of these next dozen counts. And it's telling, at the very least, that this director was completely unconcerned with the liability it would present for his project,
that's
that
been
any of
going
these
on.
counts would end up being found true.
Multiple projects in Italy or whatever ran stuff with him. They seem completely unconcerned. I don't know if that's just because Italy's a world away and they just like they're not as.
It's just a different culture, I guess.
Well, or they're not as concerned with celebrities' private lives, or they don't know about celebrities' private lives. I also found it very interesting that at least through the first 100 or so comments that I read through was a lot of support for Spacey.
Yeah, I mean, it's...
In the absence of like actual physical evidence and police records, what we have on is just the sheer amount of claims against him is obviously insanely suspicious. But a lot of people here are saying, you know, I have no, like, I don't know. Like, they feel like the Anthony Rapp thing is like them saying, like, oh, see, he's innocent. Well, no. It just means that they were never going to prove something.
It just means there wasn't enough evidence.
They were never going to prove something from 1986.
There are plenty of crimes
happen.
that happen that cannot be proven,
Yeah.
and therefore you can't
Yeah.
be convicted of them. It's simple as that. It doesn't mean it's true or false. And that's up for your conscience, I guess, to decide based on the evidence that you see. But a lot of people are saying, like, if anything, for an actor of his level of prestige, where he used to be A-list, Oscar-worthy, that being a voice actor for a production company that's relatively small and is foreign is more evidence that he has been casted outside of Hollywood, and that he's still able to get work, but this is a fall from grace for him. So I just wanted to read this quote from the director of Control. He said that Spacey's embattled status was a consideration when casting, but he wouldn't say it was a concern. He is one of the greatest actors of our generation. His personal life aside, it's something I can't comment on and have no knowledge of. It's an opportunity to work with one of the acting greats. So he just saw this as self-interest only.
Yeah. Well,
he was going to use Kevin Spacey's name to get his project ahead.
That's where business and capitalism meets ethics, and you have to find your middle ground there, right? Like that's one of the reasons I criticize Hollywood a lot is that it's one of the, if not the most capitalist industry in the world, full of socialists and communists that want to talk about how evil money is. And this is a proof of the underbelly of the industry is far more brutal and far more interested in money than any amount of the Seth Rogen. Who's the one who went on with Gad Sad, who like went on a Twitter exchange with Gad Sad, and they like went back and forth about it, and he pointed out like, look, you're part of one of the most capitalist industries in the world, and you benefit from that. But on the underbelly, the people that are making these movies, the ones that have to make their money, it's why Disney's such an interesting example, like a company that doesn't seem all that concerned about making money these days. The financiers, the one who really put the money up, your producers, they're the ones who want to see a return on their investment. So you have to wonder how they get to a point where, first of all, he's not even going to be seen on screen in this movie. He's going to be a voice on a telephone. So you're not even going to see his face. So how is his voice even that recognizable? It is. Like, but I'm thinking of him as like Frank Underwood. Like I think
it is one of the reasons he has star power, at least.
So
and the idea is interesting that it's this British politician. She's having an affair with the prime minister, and then her self-driving car gets hijacked, and he is, I'm presuming, the voice talking to her, trying to blackmail her and expose that she's having this politically advantageous affair.
Is this one of those things where it's like it wasn't going to make any money anyway, so like it's like a Hail Mary, like it might get us enough to, there are like clearly I take this comment section as proof that at least some of the public interest says that they don't care, because part of it's probably they're burnt out. They've had 5 years of Me Too, so the actual predators, the actual evil people, have blended together with the with the Johnny Depps and the people who are kind of just, we don't know if they're guilty, we don't know if they're innocent, the Brad Pitts, we don't know if they're guilty, we don't know if they're innocent. So the actual villains are the ones that benefit from this, because it's all been obfuscated and people throw their hands up. They don't have time to read this stuff all day. We do this for work. They don't have time to read about whether 19,000 different claims as to Kevin Spacey's affairs, whether any of that is true. So they just say, throw my hands up. Is it a good movie? I'll go see it. That's literally just kind of
that's the only thing you can do, because any artist or director or actor or actress is possibly a monstrous person at this point. So you have no choice but to separate the art from the artist if you don't want to lose your sanity.
Yeah. I mean, I make that distinction every day, at least as far as their, like, how they speak to people on the internet. Like, there's people with annoying beliefs that I think are super annoying all the time that I watch their stuff. I watched Glass Onion, loved it. Can't stand Ryan Johnson on Twitter, but that's a lot different than worlds away from actual physical crimes.
You can hold Star Wars against him, though.
Yes, you can hold The Last Jedi against him.
You can hold his work against him, but his Twitter is irrelevant to whether Glass Onion was good. And it was good.
It was. So it's just, it's weird. That's also, this was a kind of an aside, and it's not really connected to this. It speaks to the human desire to work. Like, he doesn't have to work. He doesn't. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, not really the human desire to work, but for him, the narcissist desire to get validation and affirmation and publicity.
But you see a lot of celebrities who don't need to work, who go through personal traumas or their own things, or they do things like this, and they still want to be out there doing things. And it's like, people aren't really designed to sit around and do nothing.
Yeah, well, they didn't pick that profession for no reason.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. So
and
it's like,
according to Me Too, they are not designed to go die in a ditch somewhere just because the internet lambasted them for dubious claims.
Well, no. According to Me Too, they are, unless they're abusing children, and then in which case we have to see the gray area of things, and then then there's somebody that we can look at to the nuance, as they say.
I mean, the actual expectation is that you do like go live in a barrel. Yeah. Like Diogenes, if you get accused of anything, you should basically fall off the face of the planet. Never speak again.
The original purpose of, like, the most virulent form of cancel culture was that you don't work. Your family can't even talk to you anymore because you're every time they search your name on the internet, a bunch of vile stuff comes up about you. They want you to go into a ditch and die. Also, you should just kind of
like beat yourself until you're bruised all over your body. Like, that would be nice too.
Not understanding that the real monsters, the Kevin Spaceys, aren't going to beat themselves up or even worry about it because they're monsters. Regular people are the ones that suffer from that type of thing because they aren't bad people. Kevin Spacey has no compunction about being a shitty person.
Obviously. I mean, given those videos that he filmed.
The creepy Christmas videos.
Poking the fireplace. Yeah, I don't think he feels anything. Neither does Alec Baldwin. These people have no consciences.
He might be worse because he somehow tries to keep, like, a genial presence and this weird sense of, like, highbrowness that's really more frustrating than all of it. And his choice to sue his coworkers on the set of Rust is a particularly, like, creepy example of sociopathy to me. Like, you could say it's just business and legalities, but he has to, when he does it, he knows what that means, right? He knows how people are going to think about him when he doesn't. He just doesn't care. Mm-hmm. So
let's go to Super Chats. Bree Sullivan said, can you get J.K. Rowling on this show? I mean, we'll look into it, but I can't make any guarantees.
I would love to get her take.
We just have such a packed schedule.
Yes, I would love to get her take on the movies versus the books and her take. I would like to lambast the creators of the movies a little bit for making movies that, unless you've read the books, make literally no sense. Like, if you haven't read the books, you're watching the movie, you're like, why is this happening? Like,
that's how I felt.
I'd read the book, so I understood it, but, like, there's a guy named Dominic, I don't remember his last name. He used to have a channel called Lost in Adaptation where he would compare the books to the movies and then tell you where they're the same, where they're different, and and he'd point out, like, you wouldn't know what's going on here. You don't know that because your brain is filled in the blanks. And he would point out, he's like, if you don't know that this happened, if this didn't happen in the movie, how the hell does this come to pass? And that's very interesting. Like the editors, which means that the editors and the directors had to have all read the books too. Otherwise, they'd have been literally by choice making something that made no sense.
And they expected only super fans to watch, I guess.
Well, it just proves to you the size of the super fan,
Yeah.
super fanness of it all.
BMF Nate Dogg said, I walked out on Yes Mom, LN. I don't know what any of
Ye's
this
mom.
means.
He sang Ye's mom last night.
Oh.
He walked out on...
You forgot an apostrophe there, buddy. Joel D. Valdez said, where do you see the culture at in the next 10 years? If it's not in the gutter already, the sewage system.
I'm the black-pilled one in this group usually that says like it's only going to get worse. I thought initially that there might be some coming around of things. And then when Donald Trump announced his re-election campaign, his second, I thought that dooms us to at least 8 more years of awful media.
It's maybe not that it's going to just get unanimously worse, but it's going to get more polarized. The bad is going to get worse and the good is going to get better.
Yeah, I just see culture splitting. Like
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
you'll have it. You see it in a lot of
Ghettoized subcultures of
Well,
media.
I think that you see this a lot in the way legislation comes across. Like in a lot of ways, we have 2 countries that occupy the same space.
Yeah.
And so I see this across both politics and culture. And I see it in all kinds of industries. Like there is going to be a group of people that has one set of values and operates one way, and another group of people that operates a different way. And in some ways, the further they can distance themselves from one another, kind of the more neutral things become, but inevitably they are forced to interact and forced to fight over resources or votes or whatever it is. So you'll continue to see intense clashes between cultures, but I think more and more we're moving towards basically similar to like the 2-party system, like a 2-culture America.
Yeah. I also think that Donald Trump is out as far as the boogeyman and Elon Musk is in. He is the new boogeyman. He fits all the qualities of evil billionaire, but he's like a younger troll. So he will be framed as the next Donald Trump.
Pass the torch.
He's your threat to democracy.
Potatoes for Seamus said, Brett, I don't know if you can decipher this, but he said he is self-care.
He's asking Hannah Claire, did you watch the next Fast
Did you watch
and
the
Furious?
next Fast and Furious?
What? What a fun takeaway. No, I haven't watched it yet. We had an off week this week. I'll come back next week having watched Fast and the Furious 4.
I, however, did watch Fast and the Furious 4
It's
again.
weird. I have to watch them, and suddenly Brett looked at me and he's like, I watched 4, 5, and 6 on Thanksgiving. Good, sir.
Like,
you're the one
that's
who told
your
me.
problem?
Also, like, you're the one who told me if I could take this week off, but okay.
There is some projection right there in tone. I said it as, hey, I watched 4, 5, and 6 for fun over the weekend.
Absolutely not. I watched another ring yesterday. You're like,
lying.
well, I watched 4, 5, and 6. Like,
I said,
good. You watched them all, buddy. I'm excited for you.
She is
He
projecting.
wanted to be properly equipped for when you
Yes.
do review them to
Next
have
time
the
I'm
proper comebacks.
next time-
Whenever you criticize them, he'll have the perfect comeback for why it's actually
When I'm like,
perfect.
I think this is about incestuous relationships. And Brett's like, what?
I
He has
didn't
to be
remember
prepared.
that.
Yeah. So I watched 4. And by the way, I love 4 because it's not super long. It's one of the reasons to love the 4th one because it's not over 2 hours.
Thank goodness.
Damn, that's crazy. I'm never going to make it to the 4th one, though.
Have you even made it to number 1? You were like, I'm sitting it out. It makes me laugh though, because everyone in our office now, like Kellen, when I was leaving last night, he was like, don't worry. The 4th one is where the series gets really good. Like,
It
this
does.
is the new joke for everyone. Like,
Oh,
whenever
no.
movie I'm on, they're like, no, this is the
next
best
one,
one.
though.
4 is really good. 5 is better because it's got The Rock in it. So
Okay. Bad App said, Tim done goofed. I'm not mad, just disappointed. Can I get that Krigler jacket, though? It's a corduroy American Eagle jacket. I'm open to a trade.
look, hitting somebody with the "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed" is not kosher unless you're like a parent. Like I feel like only parents can
True,
say. I think
true.
only your parent can say, "I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed."
Are you saying like when someone else says it, it doesn't have the same sting,
Yeah.
or like you should not levy those words unless you're a parent?
Them's is fighting words unless they're your parents. Like it
Then
doesn't,
you should feel
and
ashamed.
it doesn't have the same. Like it doesn't hurt me the same unless my parents say. But then like the comeback to that's always like, well, it's more of a rebuke on your parenting skills than on me. Like
Joel D. Valdez said, do you know any new artists we should be aware of?
I would have to know what type of artists you're looking.
I think he probably means music.
New musicians. What have I been listening? What have you been listening to lately?
I've been like off of music for a while.
Really?
You guys should do like an end of year either roundup or like predictions for 2023. I feel like that'd be a fun segment to do like right towards the end of December.
Pop culture predictions.
Yeah.
That would be fun.
That's I haven't really been listening to. I listen to a lot of the stuff that I've always listened to, but that's I love Dermot Kennedy, and he released a new album recently that was quite not as I like his stuff when there's more electronic reverb. Like his old stuff is a little bit different. His acoustic stuff doesn't really do it for me, but it's still good in comparison. But
Bobby said, I'm still confused. All I saw last night was someone, Ye, speaking in generalities while Tim was doing everything but begging for specifics. Should start recording the IRL pre-show more often, though. Yep. The problem with recording the pre-show is that the vibe of the pre-show would not be the pre-show.
Yeah, it's also
like the show.
When I said what happened during pre-show last night, I didn't mean like it's a pre-show, like something secretly we do without you guys. Like it's like sound check and setup and stuff like that. Like
it's not really a show.
It
it's
is
just existing.
It is literally
in the room.
pre-show.
It's pre-production.
Us doing stuff.
It's not pre-show. It's pre-production.
I mean, theoretically, there's a lot of places on this property where you're always being recorded. You know.
Yeah.
It's just that like
it's all a show.
Yeah. This is all an illusion.
It would have like. To me, like, I would have loved to have heard more specifics. Like, if you can go into actual, like, name detail about stuff, like, list specific examples. Like, I'm not second guessing anything.
Well, that's why Luke
like,
brought up Harley Pasternak, and then that didn't get explored properly. But that's one of the individuals that you could talk about.
Yep. Or even like when he talks about the like banks cutting him off. Who was in charge of that bank? Did you get a letter from a specific person? People have an easier time hearing you when you talk about somebody who did like a specific person. It's a lot harder, especially if you're not bigoted, you don't want to hear generalities. You want to hear about specifics because people do things to you, not, you don't want to attribute one thing to a whole group of people. At least I would see it that way. I don't want to do that. Like, I don't know.
Sure. LM Gunslinger said Tim talks too much. I mean, it is his career to talk, so
I will say that
it's hard to not cross the line.
Is that a critique of last night or just like a general observation?
Have you ever been like, sometimes we'll be doing this and it's like you get like into a segment and you're like, man, if I had Tim's ability to just keep going, like he can just keep going. It's a skill set.
It's the wealth of knowledge up there from constantly looking at the news. Brie Louise said, if Ye can't handle calm questioning and walks out of being asked to clarify his position, he can't handle the presidential debate stage.
That was my general takeaway. Is actually, I mean, given the unserious world we live in, it would be an amazing debate to watch. But
I didn't think that was going to happen.
I just want to point out that like he hasn't actually filed anything. Yeah. Like you have to like. There's an administrative process to running for president, and he hasn't completed any of that.
That's why I was like, I don't even know if this campaign exists or is going to exist. And then Luke was like, no, it's real. And I was like, wait, but the paperwork though.
Yeah. It's not real until you file. Yeah. Like, I don't know what to say.
Bad Up said, there's not enough time in the day to watch poop emoji movies. I'm watching PCC and 2000s reality shows. Look, that's really the way. Like 2000s reality shows, Big Brother,
great choice.
Not even reality shows. Just the 2000s. It was a vibe.
In general,
it was a vibe.
We're sad for anyone who missed it.
I'm still watching Everwood, which was like one of Chris Pratt's first roles when he looks like the dorkiest, gangliest teenager you've ever seen in your entire life, and Emily Van Camp, who's like they're all teenagers, and Treat Williams when he was still young, though he doesn't look that much different.
They moved to Colorado,
They moved to Colorado.
Brett was summarizing this for me, and I was like, okay.
So I love that you say Colorado.
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 It's very.
Do we have a native in the chat who can give us a correct pronunciation?
Boo-hoo.
Whoa.
But in the show, it's this ridiculous premise where his wife, like a couple years before she dies, talks about how she always wanted to live in Everwood, Colorado. It's the most unrealistic thing you'd ever have. So when she dies, he moves the family to Everwood, Colorado, because it's what his wife would have wanted. It's so early 2000s. It's incredible. It will remind you of a better time, when Bush was in office. And you were naive to the fact that the war machine was already up and running, and things were just simpler times if you were younger and you weren't paying attention to the world.
Johnny Derp said, Hollywood isn't entitled to my money. Make another slavery film or something like Bros and watch me not pay attention. Earn my cash. That is all. Totally fair. That's what I'm saying.
It's, I don't know, man. I don't think that those movies are meant to make a ton of money, though. Like, I don't.
Then why was Bros set for a full theatrical release?
Emancipation, I don't believe was sent to make a 1 week release. Doesn't tell me
Crazy
that,
like now there's enough credit in making virtue signaling movies that you can be like, this one's not gonna make any money, but it's going to win us social currency, so it's worth doing.
And it is like, this is where I have the hard time, because I don't like to go into the idea of ESG because it's such a complicated issue, right? But there is something to be said for these companies where, what was it, that Exxon had a lower ESG score than FTX, right? Like, you don't know how these things are divided up.
I don't trust any of these things.
And
like,
for these companies,
who is setting these rankings? It's all a scam.
It is. So it's hard to talk about because it's not opaque in any way. Like, it's not clear cut in any way. So you don't understand. You just know that not that long ago, when these credit systems were put in place for financing, that a lot of how things were made changed. Not just policy, not just the movies they're making, but how they hire people. The tax credit system in California that has to do with your gender, your racial makeup, for who they hire behind the scenes as well as in front of the camera, right? There's a reason to do that beyond just social justice. There are tax incentives and corporate reasons why they do these things.
Incentives that border on blackmail
yeah.
basically. Johnny Depp, William Jones, I can't read that. BMF Nate Dogg said, damn, were they building the stadium with dynamite?
Maybe. I don't know.
No, but...
No, they're just like no worker protections or regulations.
One more and then let's keep going.
Let's move on. Matt's S-Box Emporium said, y'all should reach out to Ryan Upchurch for a Friday slot while Hip-Hop Country isn't y'all's thing. His record label is changing Nashville. I like Ryan Upchurch a lot, actually. I think that would be cool to have him on. There's another Ryan Upchurch, though, that follows you. Like, you're mutuals with him, and he's like a different Ryan Upchurch that's like known for skating, isn't he?
Bring them both on. Have a showdown.
They'll both double Ryan Upchurch
the
show
one
coming
true
soon.
Ryan Upchurch.
One is a pro scooterer. And I met Scooter. Yeah, I met him here.
Oh, really?
I met him here. He's really
awesome.
Really cool. Yeah,
what the heck?
And they have to deal with the fact that they both have the name Ryan Upchurch.
I'm telling you, this is an amazing double feature.
Yeah. So, or it would have been funny if we get that Ryan Upchurch, and then we're like, you said you want the music
booked
one.
The wrong one.
Damn.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on.
Let's do it.
And talk about Cara Delevingne. She recently donated her orgasm to science.
That is not a misspeak, right?
What organs?
No. She donated her orgasm to science.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So basically,
what does that mean?
what actually happened is she donated her blood before climax and then after, so that these scientists could measure the level of endocannabinoid in her blood, which is a chemical associated with relaxation and reducing anxiety.
And she's the only person in the world who's done this, so this study is useless.
Yeah, she did this purely for her BBC docu-series called Planet Sex, where she has been traveling around the globe trying to find answers to all of her burning questions about sexuality, and especially women's sexuality, and how she believes that it's suppressed and overlooked, and there are a lot of misconceptions about it. Now, I would love to know if she went to a country like Qatar to ask these questions, or if she only wanted to go to European countries mainly in the West, to do all of these publicity stunts.
The other thing that I'm wondering is, when did this get filmed? Because she was not doing so well there for a minute.
Yeah, we covered these pictures of her when she was at an airport where everyone was pointing out that she looked disoriented, and then worryingly malnourished.
And then her sister was spotted at her house, her sister who lives in England.
She was picked up by this black car where as she was getting driven away, her foot was flying out of the window.
It seems like she wasn't doing well for a minute. I'm curious when this was filmed.
Yeah, probably before whenever that was.
This is
There's
also a big amount of this that has to do with it's a weird pushback against straight couples. Like they literally talking about equity in orgasms. That's what this is talking about.
And she's like, it sounds like queer women have it a lot better than straight women.
I've known a couple people who are getting I know at least one girl who's getting her PhD, I think she's literally, her thesis is in the orgasm gap. I mean, this has been a document. Oh yeah, this is something that
only
comes out of
65% of straight women orgasm during sexual intercourse, and 95% of men. I do want to ask the 95% of men how they know when they're done.
I think that this is something that has been a part of feminist philosophy, especially third or fourth wave feminism, for a little while now. She's just sort of becoming the public face. This 6-part documentary reminds me of a book called, I believe it's called Committed by Joe Piazza. And there's a podcast that came after where she traveled around the world and met with people from different cultures and different nations discussing like essentially marriage and monogamy, like what does that look like for you. So in some ways this is sort of a tried and true model, right? Like you have,
or it's
an
just
aspect,
a cheap imitation of that.
that's what I think it is. I think it's supposed to be more sensational, and you know, I wouldn't be surprised if whoever's producing this is aware of that. I feel bad for Cara Delevingne in some ways because I feel like she has no personality, right?
Oh yeah.
She's known for like, she was young and famously dating a couple older women because she's either bisexual or gay, I'm not really sure what. And then she kind of is like a party girl, and after that, like, I don't know anything
she's
about
a
her.
nepotism baby.
Yeah.
I think that her ancestry even traces back to Charlemagne the Great.
Yeah. She's like
And
part of the British aristocracy.
She's like part of the Selfridges line of heiresses. I mean, she's classically, you know, thrown into the public eye at random,
But, like,
and we were just like expected to know who she is, but she actually doesn't have much of a personality or anything to say for herself,
or like hobbies. Like
Or
if
hobbies,
you aren't
yeah.
out there researching, I guess, the orgasm gap or whatever it is, like, do you play sports? Like, do you have any charities you like? Like, do you like Selena Gomez like has a cooking show or whatever? Like,
yeah, and then
what
it's like,
do you do
here's
outside
my
of
personality?
being?
I'm
Yeah.
obsessed with sexual orientation,
Gender
and
ideology.
yeah, like getting cheap attention
she
for
talks about-
making entertainment about it. Like, also, she just seems to have like some pretty serious mental health struggles. This one paragraph says, there is no limit to how far Cara Delevingne is willing to go to explore what makes us all human. Speaking to the Mirror, the actress said making the documentary changed her life after she was left feeling suicidal over her sexuality. The gender fluid and bisexual star says she feels more comfortable with herself after battling internalized homophobia and crippling self-shame. So
They
she
love-
says that
they
doing
love
this
shaming themselves.
docuseries has changed her life, and she was just like completely in desolation before doing it. And it's like, you don't seem like a very stable person.
We keep pathologizing shame in this culture now. Like you're shamed for your skin color, you're shamed for your sexuality. It seems like they love to be flogged for their own beliefs or for what or
Yeah.
original sin.
See-
Also, I do want to say, she talks about female sexuality being repressed. Does she mean like not in the media? Because I don't think that's been the case for the last 20 years in the
She's
media.
not going to any of the countries where female sexuality actually is.
She talks about going to women-only sex clubs and ethical porn sites. I do like the idea that there's like we're a porn site, but we're ethical. Like
this is
we're
like
the we're
this
the
is a
not human
huge-
trafficking one.
This is a huge part of fourth
Yeah.
wave feminism. It comes along with a lot of the conversation
there's
around
female-positive porn,
polyamorous
yeah.
relationships or ethical, strip clubs or whatever else.
What is an
for
ethical
me,
strip club?
An ethical strip club would be like somewhere where you're not human trafficked there and where you're like fairly paid and the conditions are nice, right? Theoretically, we could have
probably
one of
where they're
those.
paid an hourly wage that is on par with like any
And you're allowed-
service industry job,
and you're
as
allowed
well
to
as the
s-
tips they get.
You're allowed to set boundaries for yourself. Like, I don't know if they
I mean,
exist,
the
but they're
premise of an
hypothetical.
ethical strip club
The
or an
bouncers-
ethical porn set, yes, is ridiculous on the face. And I think it's incredibly disingenuous that an heiress who comes from a long line of wealth is out here preaching about this ethical porn set and giving them props for it, when in reality, like, this isn't an industry that she would ever have to resort to survive, and that's the reality for a lot of women who
like
are in it.
where that's true, and I totally agree with you. But the argument that a lot of fourth wave feminism makes is like, no, this is something that women elect into, and they want to be there, and to say otherwise is anti their sexuality or like whatever.
The
What gets
bouncers
me
of
about
America should
this,
be complaining.
what
because
gets me-
means that's like they're saying they're not doing their jobs. The bouncers of America have every right to complain. They do their jobs.
call their union right
Call
now.
their union right now.
But what gets me about this is like she's saying I was struggling with my identity and my sexuality and this thing and the other, and it, everyone has their own psychological stress and their own things that they wonder about themselves, especially when you're young and developing. She's, I think, 30, right? Or
Yeah,
like
she's
in
30.
her late. Yeah. Part of me is like, girl, like, get outside your own head. Like, volunteer somewhere. Like, do something that is not.
Act more?
No, but like do something that's not about yourself, because acting would be like suspending your personality and taking on someone else's personality, right? Like, do something that is good for your community in a very like calm way. Like, I get it, maybe you think you're changing the world with your docu-series, but really like you think that you are the ultimate beneficiary from this experience. Like, I think that so often people who are struggling with maybe legitimate turmoil about who they are kind of lost in the echo chamber of their own mind. Yeah. Like, you need to stop obsessing about yourself for 5 minutes and consider, you know, the world around you. Then come back to your problems when you have some perspective.
Very hard to do first of all, in a culture that's narcissistic to begin with these days, but among celebrities who are sometimes through no fault of their own, just because it's how their lives have been, you know, like they talk about with handlers, with all these things that kind of make their lives that way. They're narcissistic almost by default. And then they're working out their own personal problems in front of a camera for a product that's going to be sold on Hulu or wherever it's going to be sold. And then we're watching them work out their own issues. And I wonder if she's going to come back to something like this 20 years from now and be like, oh my God, like, why did I do that?
I mean, at the age she's at right now, she has should have the self-knowledge and agency to understand what she's doing and the consequences that will follow.
Still her responsibility.
And because of course it's her responsibility. What I'm saying is, like, I don't predict that later in life she's going to rethink this. I mean, it's ironic that I'm saying this about a docuseries literally about female sexuality, but like, this is, of course, a masturbatory exercise. Like, this is about her narcissism, and it's just highlighting how broken and confused this society is, that they would find this as like a profitable project for a mainstream network like BBC. Yeah. Like, who is watching this?
Yeah, it was BBC.
Who is watching this? Like, who is the target audience?
And I think it falls back more to what I was saying earlier. Like, when they talk about they talk about polyamory, they talk about all these things that are non-traditional sexual relationships. And I do believe that, to me, for Cara Delevingne, it may be her exploration of her sexuality and her coming to terms with who she is. But for the producers, who I think are far more nefarious, it's about making you feel like the world beneath your feet isn't stable. It's about making the world feel like it doesn't make any sense, and there's no actual, the world is incongruous, that nothing is actual solid around you, and that nothing is even keel anymore. I don't feel that way a lot anymore. When I watch a lot of old movies, the lines were much more clear. With everything that you watched, everything you read, everything that you, if not because it actually was, but because the storytelling made it so. And now everything is designed to make the world feel the opposite of that.
And they're conflating shame with just the precedent that some things should be private and not public.
Yeah.
Like, you're not being shamed just because some people think that sexuality should be a private matter.
And I think more than anything, this is an ego in seeking affirmation for herself, right? Like, she's not making a well-rounded, balanced movie. She's already telling you there's a bias in this. We say basically that for women, it's better to be in a queer relationship. We are promoting different, like, pro-sex values and things like that. Like, I think ultimately she's looking for a pat on the back from feminist icons for this, and probably because she has nothing else going on in her life. You know what I mean? Like, she is making a movie or docuseries to basically look like she's in the know and cool and edgy, and like,
and it makes her the opposite of relatable.
And it makes her, like, it makes me sad for her. Like, get a life. Come on, team. Like, don't make yourself like this sexual object. Like, I realized that she was a model at a young age, and like, I just feel sad for her. I feel like her life must be really empty.
Yeah, it bears repeating that sexuality and your sexual identity, your gender identity, is not a personality trait. It's not a religion, and it shouldn't be the most salient thing about your identity.
Yeah,
that people recognize in you. Like, ultimately, this is all just like really sad for us collectively, because it's just showing how much confusion is getting spread.
Well,
by
and
the
I hope
media.
for some people, they see like following this train of like, I must question everything about my gender and my sexuality. Like, it's not making her happier, right?
Yeah.
She seems miserable even after this, right? Like, nothing. My evidence there being like, she said that she was falling apart, and this docuseries like really helped her, which means they filmed it before she had what appeared to be some kind of public mental health incident. Like,
Yeah.
things aren't getting better for this girl. I
Things
think
are
this is
getting
sad.
worse, noticeably
Nothing
worse.
seems to be doing like,
Yeah.
again, like, get a cookbook,
But
do something else.
you know what all
on cars. I'm not trying to
audiences
be gender
can
stereotypical.
unite around?
What is that, Mary?
Cocaine Bear.
Let's go.
What is this? I just
Based
don't
on
understand
a
this.
true story, Cocaine Bear, directed by Elizabeth Banks,
I know
is
this
about
story.
to release. We just have seen the first poster for the movie. It is the silhouette of an American black bear just covered in white powder, ambiguous white powder, roaring into the sky. And everyone is really excited to see this movie because it's based on the true story of a drug runner who jumped out of an airplane, his parachute didn't work, and his duffel bag full of cocaine landed in the American wilderness. And then a black bear came along and ate all 75 pounds of cocaine at once.
Where is
1,000
PETA?
times the level of safe consumption. And for the last 5 minutes of his life was the most dangerous animal on the planet. And local folklore says that he went on a rampage, killing people all throughout the area. So this is going to be like the slasher of the year.
The Pablo
thing is,
Escobar movie.
it's
Pablo Escobar.
Nicely done.
Or American Psycho 2.
Yes.
The thing is, like, this is a true story, and also, where is PETA to be like, we're against drug smugglers. They caused the death of the American black bear. Like, I'm
Ray
sorry.
Is this Ray Liotta's last movie before he passed? It's got to be Ray Liotta's last
Really?
movie before he passed. Also,
What a
it's
way
got,
to
I
go
thought
out.
that he died while he was in the middle of filming one in Guatemala or something.
And then it's got Carrie Russell as well. And I also want to point out that I love that Elizabeth Banks. She's like, okay, Charlie's Angels, that was a misfire. How can I win everyone back? Not Pitch Perfect 3. I'm not going to make Pitch Perfect 3. I got it. Cocaine Bear.
This is mass appeal media.
The
Like
end of feminism.
I am so excited to see this, and the memes about it are hilarious.
Let's look at these.
Because it's real. Like, that's the funniest thing.
The first one is my favorite. It's the 4 tickets to Cocaine Bear, please.
I love it.
I think this is
Me
what a
when
good
the
story.
cocaine bear takes the cocaine in Cocaine Bear. Cocaine Bear sweep, bigger box office than Avengers Endgame and
I'm
Titanic.
in. When does it come out?
I think February. Yeah, it says February 24th.
Everyone we know has to go to this movie. I think
We
this
need
is
to
gonna be
all
great.
go see it together.
My wife's-
This is like a moment for everyone to come together in our culture.
It's like, it really is though, because it's like sort of violent. It's also about nature. It's sort of Americana. There's some true crime elements to it.
You can't talk about
Drug smuggling.
representation because it's an animal.
Yeah, like we've been waiting for this. This is a great idea.
I can go on the all drugs can be legal tirade if I need to. Like, look, this bear is a bad example. You don't want to use this bear as the example.
I
And
love this meme, my wife's funeral.
Yep.
And Cocaine Bear premiere.
He looks very ready to go see Cocaine Bear. His wife's
We're all
funeral,
gonna
not so
dress in formal attire to see
much.
Cocaine Bear.
Like Minions, Rise of Gru, and everybody wore suits. to go
Yes,
see-
and then they started getting kicked out of the theaters.
we should wear. No, then we should all
Which was like weird. Why?
Right?
Let teenagers dress up. Like,
like.
stop
trying to have some harmless
Stop
fun.
pushing streetwear and sweatpants on them. Like, if they want to dress up.
Thank
We
you.
should go as drug smugglers. I don't know what that looks
I'll
like.
come with a big
I'll come as a
duffel
bear.
bag.
Like you come with a big duffel bag.
And
like,
you'll dress up in like the bear suit, covered in white powder. We'll cover you in like flour.
that will be fantastic. It'd be like,
Sir, you're making a gigantic mess in the theater. Please get out.
like, can I pay you extra to wear this into the theater? All right. Oh, and we got one more. We also have to talk about.
yeah.
There's so much money coming out. My computer keeps turning off
Look,
this.
we could buy all that
From-
cocaine from Cocaine Bear, from the bear, if we needed to right now.
Yeah.
What is this?
From the director of Blood and Honey, the Winnie the Pooh slasher film, is a new horror movie starring Bambi.
Bambi on rabies.
Bambi on rabies. It's going to be called Bambi the Reckoning.
Not with rabies.
They
it says on
say
rabies.
this is a dark retelling of the 1928 story we all know and love. Bambi will be a vicious killing machine that lurks in the wilderness,
We've got so much awesome
getting
stuff to watch this year.
revenge for his mother's death.
Like, if I have to go see Avatar, then we get this too. If
a treat.
Yeah.
We deserve Bambi on rabies as a little
and
treat.
Cocaine Bear.
And
we
Cocaine
deserve
Bear.
I
cocaine.
don't want to see Bambi on rabies. Like, everyone leave childhood things alone. Make your own new
You don't want to see
content.
Blood and Honey? Have you seen
No.
the trailer yet?
I don't want to see it. I'm not really a horror movie person, to be honest, so that's part of it.
It's more
but,
like horror comedy, though.
No. Like, A.A. Milne is a classic. Let's just leave him be. Also, this goes off my, like, you're recycling used content.
Because it's fair use.
No. It is something that's already been produced, and then you're adapting it to be a new thing. Like, instead of race swapping, you're genre swapping. Like, I'm out.
I guess.
Well,
yeah.
But I'm
It's just
excited.
I can't get over how funny it is.
Yeah, I'm excited if you guys are excited for you, but I will not be attending, and I encourage others not to go. But,
But at least we still have Cocaine Bear.
Cocaine Bear is going to unite this country. This is what we need.
It's a new era for entertainment altogether.
I want to look a little bit. So Elizabeth Banks, written by Jimmy Warden. I don't know who Jimmy Warden is. He wrote The Babysitter, Killer Queen in 2020 and The Roommate. Not the highest ratings I've ever seen for anything, but that's, what can you do?
Look, this is what's going to launch him into the stratosphere, and then he's only going to make movies about weird crimes.
This is where I want Elizabeth Banks to pivot, get away from the feminism, get away from the woe is me, women have it so hard in Hollywood. Just make animals about just abusive animals that have been drugged by coke.
He is a victim of drug trafficking.
We don't have a lot of true stories to base them off of.
That we know of.
Then pivot into fiction after this. Then make cocaine. Then make Cocaine Dog. The
I
sequel.
did like that.
No, stop with sequels. Why would you even say that?
No,
what is wrong with
not
you?
Not Cocaine Dog. Not the domesticated one.
This,
Cocaine
I'm
Wolf.
already making an anti-sequel. Like, this is charming because it's real. It happened
Yeah.
to one bear. Like, stop trying to abuse other animals for your film rights, Brett. Get over yourself. Ugh.
I liked the idea of Annihilation because they had these like alien bodies that imitated animals, and like all of these atoms like glommed together to form something that kind of looked like a bear but was actually like an alien invasive species. Like, I thought
It's the
that
alien's
was cool.
best interpretation of a bear.
Yeah, like we need more predators instead of villains that we're supposed to sympathize with.
Also, Hollywood, like we're talking about, like back in the day, the story when we were talking about the play earlier about Downstate. Somebody once watched a play, right, where it's like, look, this is a fascinating story about this victim, and some loser and creep was like, but what if we told the story about the creeps in it? No, but if it's like, look at this fascinating story about drug trafficking, and some awesome person was like, why don't we tell a story about the bear who got dosed with 70 kilos of cocaine? Do that. That's interesting.
I think it's a great way to call attention to the problem of drug trafficking in America. Like,
So true.
it's
Also,
going to be my new build the wall. Don't let the bears suffer.
Fair. That's a fair.
Although I think he
that's a-
flew in on a plane. I'm not really sure the details. Close the sky to illegal drug
Maybe they
trafficking.
turned
There's
into
also
a-
this priest named Donald Calloway who worked for the Yakuza when he was a child, and he was a drug runner. And he like has this whole story of his conversion. That's something I like would love to see a film adaptation of. Like, that's amazing.
Who was the guy who jumped
Does
out?
it have a bear in it, though?
I mean, they can add that in post.
Right now, it's tough to be a bear.
Who was the guy who jumped out of the plane with the ransom? Like, he tried to hold the plane ransom. I always forget his name.
Yes. What is his name?
It's like 2 initials and then.
I'm not sure.
No, you know
I'm
what I'm
gonna
talking
look it up.
about.
I'm gonna
though.
look it up.
But like, what if it's him that's the drug runner?
But does he live? I
No,
feel like
no,
he
he
died.
was never found again after that. He held the plane for ransom.
No. The guy in
Oh,
Cocaine
in the
Bear
movie.
No, I
yeah.
think he
who
died.
jumped from the plane.
I'm
Yeah,
sure
because his
somebody in the
parachute
chat
failed.
has answered this already.
His
for
parachute
us.
failed,
DB
and
Cooper.
he
DB
likely
Cooper.
just crashed.
What if it's DB Cooper that stole all the that lost
No,
all the
because
cocaine?
he wasn't he like over in Mexico, or is this in America?
Thank you, Chad. It was DB Cooper. They did a great episode of Leverage where they actually they address DB Cooper survives, and they answer who he is. Obviously, it's not based on a true story, but they pretend as if they answer it. They kind of do it in this exploratory way in the show. It's really, really good. So, all right,
Let's go into super chats and
let's
finish
do
off
it,
the
guys.
show. Satoshi Guasamoto, I hope I said that right, said, New subscriber to the guys. Thanks to Mary. She has a good head on her shoulders, and I appreciated her take on Ye last night. Now that he is free from the Kardashian curse and off meds, I think his best music is still to come.
See, that's what I mean. I think that great art is born out of struggle and conflict, and that he may end up making fantastic, amazing, new leaps into music if he kind of channels that energy into what he's going through right now.
I hope that just because he was dropped by large corporations, it doesn't mean he'll give up on his creative pursuits, especially fashion design. Like, you don't need the collaboration with Balenciaga or with Adidas.
Yep.
He is anti-fragile in that way. Sujata Mastani? Suhata? I don't know how to say that. I'm sorry. Said, I watched Wednesday for Burton. There were a lot of opportunities for character growth that they didn't use for Wednesday. Okay writing, good score.
I started it last night, fell asleep.
No,
that's not
quickly.
No, not. It's not a rebuke of the show. I was just really, really tired. I'm gonna read.
They said that there was this line they wanted to cut out, where she said she likes stabbings.
Cool.
I don't know. Maybe
Let's
they thought
go.
that was an opportunity for character growth. Like, I don't like stabbings anymore. Gold Mecro said, I might be Christian, but to violate an innocent, I have no pity for such people. Toss a prayer my way, Mary. Well, it's literally in scripture that, millstones and everything like that. I mean, you can look it up yourself. I won't repeat it here, unfortunately. Johnny Derp said, I'm the one downvote for the show because of my distaste for Mr. West. No hate against you guys. Take my money as a consolation prize. That is all.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, not everyone has to like him. It's fine.
Well, that's the point, right? The point is to have the discussion and just kind of go by what our experiences was with everything that happened last night.
Yeah. BMF Nate Dogg said 2022 version of the phone booth. I liked the phone booth a lot. That's going to go on my list of things to rewatch. Yash said straight to the Brimlow account. Good day.
We've already transferred it over there. Have
What?
his super chat's going straight to
Every
you.
cent you guys donate on shows goes straight to Hannah Claire's bank account, just so you know. Rhaegar
That's true.
Targaryen said, make 90-minute movies great again.
Yeah.
Seriously, dude.
Fast and the Furious 4 is only it's not 90. It's an hour and 40 minutes, which is under 2 hours. That is gold. I do not need movies to be 2.5 hours
Especially
long.
6 more Fast and the Furious movies. It's not necessary.
The funny thing is about it is exactly where it happened. Like the final chase scene in the movie is very, very short. Whereas that as soon as that movie was done and the movie was very successful, all the final chase scenes or whatever are all going to be bloated and way longer. So when it was done, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot how short that was.
Potatoes for Seamus asked Brett, what would you do to meet Ben Affleck?
Why does everybody think I love that? Just because
it's your Ben Affleck poster that you always hang outside your door.
Because I stand up for his not awful portrayal of Batman does not mean that I have some great desire to meet Ben Affleck.
Unless Dane is watching, then
then I love him.
Then you would literally die to meet him. Brewmaster Monk said, if you want specific names, check out Adam Green on BitChute. He has the chapters and verses straight from a bunch of rabbis' mouths on video. Okay. Not super interested, but okay. Tacti Plati said, sorry, late to catch. Hope not out of place, but my favorite part of Timcast's show last night was the beautiful PCC ladies saving the day. Stay pretty.
You are the PCC
Yeah, we're the
ladies.
PCC ladies.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, true. The room looked better. No, I'm just
So
kidding.
true. Not a sausage fest anymore.
I did think the lighting looked better. It looked more.
It
maybe it was the
did?
TV.
This
maybe
is
it
the
was
biggest hot
TV.
take. Everyone should know about this. If you want to look good on a podcast, you should come on Pop Culture Crisis. Timcast IRL, there are a lot of pros there, but the lighting is not one of them.
Looking like I have any blood in my face.
It looked-
not a strong suit on Timcast IRL.
The wall looked more dense and colored than
Milo
it normally
requested our editor-in-chief bring him makeup so he could not look too pale on screen.
I'm just gonna wear sunglasses like Milo from now on. That'll fix the problem just fine. Bad app. I'm sorry, I'm not going to read that. T-Bone. That's kind of oversharing a little bit.
Thank you, though.
T-Bone said, it would have been so cool if Ian spoke to Ye about graphene, not gonna lie.
Also, Big Dave sent 99 cents with no message.
I didn't see that.
Thank you, Big
Big
Dave.
Dave. Strong and silent. Johnny Derp said black and brown bears are misrepresented in media.
Is this supposed to be in the same vein as what is the dog that everybody
Pit bulls.
Pit bulls. Is that supposed to be the same thing? Like black and brown bears are somehow the pit bulls of bears?
Yeah, I'm happy to see more movies about bears.
Maybe.
Fine.
Okay. How about that? How about cocaine pit bull?
Nathan Koss has a suggestion. Nathan Koss said, meth raccoon.
Oh my God.
Look, I feel a little bit called out.
The thing is, I want it to be rooted in something real, and I bet you really could find a story about a raccoon on meth. And then I'm acceptable.
I bet you that's up there with like the Florida man story. Like I bet you
It's
it's
just
connected
me.
to a Florida man story. Like
No.
there's a Florida man somewhere who fed a.
Brett, I am the meth
Oh,
raccoon.
you're the meth raccoon. Oh.
No, but I'm being serious. Like, this story is about a bear that ate massive amounts of cocaine.
Yeah.
I bet Google meth raccoon police report, and you're going to find, like, homeowners came home to meth raccoon going through their fridge.
You know, I feel bad for the bear.
I
Yeah,
do too.
oh yeah, absolutely.
Also, like, if he really
he
didn't
do
kill
anything
people,
wrong.
I feel bad for them too.
Yeah.
Drug
Oh,
trafficking,
getting
ruining
defamed.
American lives.
I had no idea if I don't know anything about this case, so I am joking, but I have no idea if actual people were harmed or if this is like a glorified.
No one was harmed.
okay.
It literally was 5 minutes
became a
before the bear's
folklore.
heart exploded. Which
Which
is
is
sad.
sad.
Yeah, but at least you can make something kind of entertaining out of
Been
it.
there before.
What?
I hope not.
No.
Been a black bear?
Or else why are you still here right now?
You don't want to do drugs, kids. You don't. I may be for the legalization. That is my own
Cocaine bear is
position.
actually just a prolonged anti-drug PSA.
It's if we're gonna make edutainment, then make cocaine beer bear be what it is.
Cocaine beer?
Cocaine beer with a bear.
Oh no.
Oh no.
When they legalize drugs, that's what they'll produce. Cocaine
Yes.
beer.
Let's go. All right, Hannah Claire, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. It's fun to be here.
Let everyone know
I'm
they
so
can find
glad that no one took my seat.
Well, you were so quickly running up the stairs yesterday to get on the show that you didn't have to run up
Oh
quite
my
as quickly
gosh.
today.
The thing is, like, I just was like, Tim's up there monologuing to Serge. Like, we must intervene. Not that he does a bad job, but just like, I mean, it lasted 27 minutes and then we filled in for the majority of the show.
What a shame.
Anyways, yeah, thank you guys so much for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here. I am Hannah Claire Brimlow. I'm a writer for timcast.com, so you can find my work on timcast.com. Click on the read tab. You can follow me on Instagram at hannahclaire.b. You can follow me on Twitter, I think at HC Brimlow, but if it's not that, it's something else. And you should really follow Timcast News on Twitter because you can see all the work from our journalists. They're a really hardworking bunch, and yeah, they're great. I just like them.
Also, somebody said Bear on a Beer starring Samuel L. Jackson, which reminded me of Snakes on a Plane. So can we get cocaine snakes on a plane?
Stop.
BMF Nate Dogg also said raccoon barbecue leads police to meth lab.
Let's go.
I love these
Is
storylines.
this real? If there's a link, please DM this to me somewhere.
Mary,
Anyways.
let everyone know where they can find
If
you.
you would like to find some pictures of me on Instagram, you can find me there at Mary Archived. And if you would like to read my inane thoughts on Twitter, I'm also on there, also at Mary Archived. And I haven't reminded you guys of this in a while, but I would encourage you to go submit any of your pop culture crisis related memes to our subreddit. Go over there and join the subreddit, and we will meme review them next time.
Yes. Guys, I would encourage you to please like these videos, leave comments on the videos, subscribe to the channel, share the videos with your friends. I need to do that more. Somebody was pointing out like there's like a lot of live viewers, but not a lot of likes on the video. I don't know how much, I kind of take for granted that matters, that you remind people to do that. So please like this video, subscribe to the channel. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Instagram at Brett Dassler for the show. We are here every Monday through Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is noon Pacific. We are also on Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, Pandora, and Spotify if you prefer to listen. We are also on social media, Twitter at @popculture_show, Facebook and TikTok at Pop Culture Crisis, and Instagram at Pop Culture Crisis Pod. We will be back with another episode tomorrow. We'll see you then, guys. Later.
Bye.